just have to sort of bear with me a little today because I probably haven't put as much prep as I would have liked to into this today. So it'd be good to just get a bit more discussion, but basically across everyone. And if they want to contribute, then just chime in. So really today is really around the framework that World Rugby have implemented around foul play and the high tackle. And there's really two key things that I took away when I did have a quick squiz through this framework. Have you guys got any thoughts on what those two key things are as to why this framework has been introduced? Anyone want to volunteer as to what they think?
Injuries, yeah. Safety.
Yeah, safety is one of the biggest things that they brought this in for. Obviously concussion's a massive thing in the game, so that's what they wanted to sort of reduce, and that's what they've done to address that by bringing this framework. The other one is, anyone got any other thoughts on that?
The game looks better. To set it more. Yep. That's the right way of saying it.
The way that New Zealand, or World Rugby have put it here is that created as a guideline so that there is more consistency, accuracy and objectivity across refereeing decisions. So effectively, so we're all on the same page. All those stakeholders in the game, you've got your spectators, the players, coaches and everyone watching the product understands that everyone's on the same page, so we don't go out there as referees on Saturday and make an absolute howler of a decision when everyone watching knows that that's probably not the right decision to be made. Okay, so it's the consistency is one of the really key things that I reckon is that they've put into here. The other thing that's interesting is not just when you're making those or considering the decisions out there in the field. Framework is one thing. The other aspect to it as well is the field. So what you feel you're seeing at that time. And I want to just bring up, there was a WhatsApp thing that someone brought up recently, JD, amongst the Premier panel referees. And I thought that I was just sort of reflecting on that. And that was basically a couple of weeks ago, there was the Highlanders game, I think, I can't remember the play now. There was a tip tackle. And JD sort of automatically said, well, if you factor in the framework and look through and work out through these, the step-by-step guide, quite rightly he sort of pointed out that that tip tackle should point towards a red card. And there was a lot of debate going back and forth, and then that's when sort of Nick chimed in and mentioned about the feel for what that looked like at the time. So I think that's a really important consideration that you make when you're going through your process to get to that decision. The thing is, I mean, when you actually consider it, every incident, a foul play or a high tackle or whatever it might be is so unique. Everything looks different, and of course we're in a different picture. We get a different picture depending on where we're standing in the field versus someone 20 metres away or wherever. All the camera angle gets it slightly different. So all we can go on, especially because all of us in the room, apart from point two, is that we don't have TMO. We've got to make that snap-second decision and come up with what we feel is the right decision based on that framework that we're going to go through and the feel for what we reckon at the time. So they say here that there's three different definitions of class that they foul play and high tackle can fit into. Does anyone know what these are? Whether it's basically from a penalty kick, yellow card to a red card. What are the definitions of class? Is anyone on the same page? Are you waiting?
One's careless, one's danger, one's intent.
Yeah, so careless. Yeah, careless, so they say careless is no consideration or understanding that actions or technique could harm a player. So that would be considered a penalty kick. The next step down from that is reckless, and that's knowing actions or technique could put you at a risk of causing harm to a player, and that would be a yellow card. And the next one is deliberate, which purposefully using your actions or technique to cause harm to a player, that would be a red card. So, this is what I sort of want to go through with you now. So this, I've only just recently, like 10 minutes ago, Pat mentioned that this is really just concentrating on either whether it be a shoulder charge or a high tackle. So this part of the framework is just in relation to that. So forget about what I said earlier about tip tackles, it's just in relation to that. So firstly, if we scroll down, so this is a shoulder charge. Should just look at the definition definition of what a shoulder charge is. So, initial contact is made by the shoulder of the tackler against the ball carrier, with the connecting shoulders either tucked in a sling position or behind the tackler's body and not raised. If the contacting shoulder's arm is not raised or the opposite arm is raised only, then this is a shoulder charge. So we all know what a shoulder charge really is. The framework allows us to sort of see in a pretty easy form as to how do we arrive at the decision. So you'll see there quite easily head-neck contact, yes or no, we pretty clearly know where that fits into. And then the next step to consider is, well, if it's a yes, then red card. We've got to mitigating factors a bit later, but then we go down to the degree of danger, and that's another point that we're going to go through in a second. And that's when we fit into the low or high, penalty or yellow card. Now we're just going to scroll down to the high check. So we'll get this out of the way and then we'll jump back into a group sort of chat. This stuff here is really stuff that you know you should be sort of forefront of mind. If you know if you keep looking back to it and addressing it, then those decisions in the weekend should come to you a lot quicker if you can process it once you've seen what's happened. So high tackle, again shoulder or head falls into that. Is it a high or low degree of danger? And that's the difference between the yellow and red card. And then we come down the other side there to the arm, head or head contact, yes. And then we look at the degree of danger again, red or yellow, and no. Seek that tackle over the top, yes, it's obviously just a penalty. And again, we know what that looks like. We should know what that looks like in our mind. Anyone got anything to add at this point? Everything pretty clear?
We've just been talking about shoulder charges set up around the hip. You know, you see them going in sometimes at breakdown. Hitting a defenceless player, you know, who's on the ribs or something like that. We're not talking about that. We're just, there's still a shoulder charge.
Well, that's why I sort of talked initially around that, using this framework to come to that decision, but then you go back to the feel of what you thought at the time. Again, around whether it was careless or reckless or deliberate. Because, you know, when you look at this, you know, high, low, well, what's moderate, you know, and that's when we look at these other factors, mitigating factors, and around the degree of danger in that as well. So there's a lot to think about. We've just got to all be on the same page with it.
Do you think, Ryan, that the difference between careless and reckless is clear for everybody? Because for me, when I first heard those two words, it was kind of a little bit to really think about. So some examples of what might be careless versus what might be reckless.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I guess an easy example to use, I know it's not in this framework in particular, but the contact in the air, so say when someone's jumping for catch, I think if you think about careless action there versus a reckless action, it's probably quite easy to distinguish those two. But I think it's quite hard when it comes to high tackles. And I guess that's where mitigating factors come in, right? So players slipping down.
We'll look at that. I think what I mentioned before is there in that key word that they've used here. Knowing actions or technique could put you at risk of causing harm, that's reckless. But there's no consideration or understanding that actions or technique could harm a player.
It's careless.
It's careless, sorry, yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think it also comes, I think as you said before, feeling the game, right? We've all been around long enough to know whether a player's going in there to deliberately hurt somebody or he's just been wrong for it and stuck the arm out, right? There's two different things. So I think when you see something in the gut, you go, oh shit,
Yes.
that's probably at the higher end as opposed to, that's just not good.
That's what I said before, you know, people on the sideline or coaches, players, they immediately all have a pretty clear indication in their heads as to where that's going to go, what direction it's going to go to. And we need to make that split-second decision. While you're processing it, you've only got that one view at the time that you've got to go on. So, you know, the feel is equally important as this framework.
That's probably a good example, Janie, of answer to George's question. That's a clear and obvious careless, wrong-footed, stick your arm out.
Yeah, that's right.
To the reckless, where I'm going in high with a swinging arm. So it's probably to answer George's question, that's probably that's the definition of a careless
See,
penalty.
my head, yeah, I've been staying calm as long as I can. I mean, I'll be honest, my head hurts when I look at these. And when we start trying to define the difference between careless and reckless and deliberate, it's all just jargon, really. Like, this is all good, well and good to learn as it uses a learning tool. But yeah, so this is what's been designed by legal people in world rugby. We've got to remember, like, what were the two things you gave, the two reasons for it? Consistency and safety. Well, there's an overarching one, which is world rugby's fear of litigation.
Yeah.
So this is where this has come from.
Yeah.
Now that's not saying it's irrelevant,
Yeah.
but I just don't think we want to get too caught up in all these, like, what's careless, what's reckless. I know it's in here and it's hard to get away from, but is it dirty? I mean, that's for me is the starting point of rugby.
Yeah.
This is a dirty action. They set out to try and hurt you.
Let's put a sort of more simple term to
Yeah, that makes me think a different way versus somebody got it wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I know it's a different way of describing the same thing, but all these, you try and go through these frameworks, and I've seen this cause capitulation in professional referees. So I don't know how we're supposed to do it well on a weekend when we're not even looking at it too much. So, yeah, look, I think, let's not get too bogged down in the wording, and have an understanding of the framework, kind of what they're after, but you know, it's really, club rugby is a high degree of common sense required, and let's just try and keep our thinking simple around it.
It gets back to the feel of the look, you know, what does it look like?
Intent of the game, what's
Yeah,
happening
and
out
that's
there.
why I just make a really clear point that it's all around the field. It's not what you think at the time. What people, you know, you're going to be on the same page if you've got the same understanding of the game and feel of the game. So you just don't want to come in with a howling based on not factoring the field. You certainly don't want to just go based on the framework, like what I'm saying.
Well, see, professional referees aren't really allowed to use anything other than a framework.
Yeah.
We've got to remember that, and they get to watch it 5 to 10 times if they want to, and that's really where this is geared at. So we just got to just try to think about the whole time how we make this simpler, because I can guarantee you I'm not thinking about that when I referee games today.
Well, let's throw a spanner in the works a little.
I'll leave you.
You lasted 7 minutes.
I think it's a good
I
idea.
just know we spend a lot of time arguing about language. You know?
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think we've all sort of agreed, is that you'll know when you see a red card, because the crowd's going to go, whoa, the players are going to be up and down jumping. You can sell a red card a lot better on those rare occasions, as opposed to nobody says a word and suddenly you put over a red card, everybody's going, what the hell was that for? So you just got to have that feel. You know when you see a red card.
So I think some of the framework that's here is possibly how you actually sell the decision, and if you see it and see what the professional referees are going through with their process when they're discussing it with the players, they can then revert back to basically enforcing the rules of the game. So they've already made the decision possibly the field, but then they're going through that process to say, well, I've got no option but a red card because the players, you've done this in a reckless promotion. That's, you know, I don't know, that's probably in some ways is a better way to explain why the purpose of this framework is really quite helpful, useful. Okay.
Why have you got no option?
What's that?
Why have you got no option? And you have the other one in your pocket.
You've left me no option. It's probably the term there. God damn it.
Now, again, this is this whole I'm sorry it's a red card type.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to by the way.
Yeah.
So that is a shoulder charge in the head. It is a red card. Don't say I have no option or I'm sorry it's a red card. It is a red card. It's not your fault. Sorry, I'll shut up.
We're going to do a group exercise, I think.
Just watch some class.
Let's go to the clips. So I haven't seen these clips, so we'll go through them and have a discussion as to what we reckon.
Of course, it's a fucking slow motion.
So you got a good view of that first clip there? Does anyone have a go at what they believe should happen here? Everything in play gets taken.
No, that's it.
What are we saying?
Clumsy.
We got penalty, we got clumsy, what else?
The guy's got down for the tackle, but he's made contact with the head. So he's in the bin.
Yeah, the mitigating factors that they talk about in that framework, the mitigating factor is he was coming down into the tackle, but he still made contact. So if you went off that framework, I must be seeing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I didn't see contact to the head. Who saw contact to the head?
Oh, come on, put your hands up.
Come on, Cookie. I mean, this is in slow motion too.
The shoulder comes up, eats his head.
There's no chin.
No, there's no head. There's no shoulder on
His
head.
head gets rocked back.
His head gets rocked back.
Just before impact.
Well, it's like you do a reserve game and say that's not a head tackle or a level.
I reckon if you saw that, I reckon if you saw that in a club game at full speed, you're probably going to automatically go, that's full contact with the head, red card. When we slow it down, we can then start to see, you know, that the initial contact is actually below the knee. So guys, so do you agree, play on?
Yeah. Knock on. Yeah, knock on. Yo! Significant drop. I didn't even see it. You can see what it says there. It says play on, significant drop by the ball carrier. In excellent, significant drop by ball carrier and tackler in excellent position. Primary contact is head to head rather than shoulder or arm to head. No direct contact to head. Play on.
Oh, so we're about to go over the shoulders now?
No, it's okay.
Start. I just want to be clear for all the frameworks. Make it shaking his head.
Anyone else got thoughts on that one?
This was just...
I agree, real time.
Yeah. Oh, this is... Well, that's not right.
So,
That was careless, 14 minutes.
Wouldn't you play on from that if you saw that coverage?
and the key there is really low level of danger. The initial contact here, but up there, but it's, yes.
I know, we decided we're moving on, eh? It's the same with you, this.
Due to cost of
Someone's filming on it's on Zoom.
Here's another one.
Up in the clouds somewhere.
That's all the look you're going to get.
So direct contact to head with high level of danger, absolutely high level of danger there. It says here, but tackler's technique is strong and the ball carrier has dropped into the tackle. So mitigating factor, dropped into the tackle. If he hadn't dropped, it would have still direct contact, red, right? So yellow card.
You have to be in a good position to see him dropping. Happy? Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke. Everything's going to trust. So he's knocked the ball on.
So he's done the opposite, hasn't he? Dropped, he's actually come up, so
Yeah.
no mitigation at all.
Just in time to.
And he's tucked his arm there, so his shoulder. And those are quite easy ones for us, you know. I think everyone would agree that straight away, you know, that's a red card.
That's another sheet.
You wait till he wakes up.
So,
which is easier to write up, the blue card or the red card?
it's pretty much just leave the 10 there. Shoulder on head, red card, direct contact, and high level of danger. So some of these are pretty clear, aren't they? Is it the last one?
Factors against mitigation.
Okay.
Just keep watching clip show.
Oh, it's there.
Next lot.
Who is in trouble? That is shoulder connection straight to the head.
This is number 2.
Who is in trouble? He is in trouble. That is shoulder connection straight to the head.
Good to see commentators read the protocol.
Anyone got any thoughts on that one?
So is it a shoulder charge or a high tackle? High tackle. What's the next question? What's your feel saying?
So the way that this is written is that the very first thing that you consider is your feel. So you feel, whatever you feel is, then you can actually then adapt and work out what sort of foul play it is and then get to the degree of danger. Can you just maybe... He is in trouble. That is shoulder connection straight to the head. High degree of danger. Red card.
Okay, so this is where we're trying to get consistency across the board. Who here saw that and instantly thought red? Saw yellow?
Coaches talking here, guys.
It's all PK.
Probably PKM.
You said everyone off.
We're talking about that club.
Correct.
That's different, but if I saw that exact same thing in club rugby, I'm not going with the car, because even from, we've had replay after replay, when I first saw it, I thought he went high, but the contact with the head wasn't obvious.
Do you feel Peter would kick as soon as you saw that?
He doesn't need to
Yeah, I
see.
would
John's 15 metres away.
I would have thought high tackle, the guy's bounced back, he's off running, and there's no injury over the PK. You need to do something, but I don't think it's going to read.
I'm really comfortable that we don't all land on the same base. If you could sell a decision, so, I mean, if you said that, as a captain, you'd be fine. But you have to make a decision. Thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Or do we all have to make the same decision for us to get consistency?
But we don't want to be too degrees different. Like, we're half yellow and half red card. Probably accept that. But
Oh, I didn't see PK. So, I mean, the bulk of the room was yellow card.
So you said you used to reckon penalty kick when you first saw it
When I first saw
as
it,
a field, but have you now changed
Oh.
having looked at that?
if I was TMO in this game, I'd be recommending yellow card.
But you remember, we're not doing
Not TMOs.
See, I agree with you, Daddy, but we're not using too much.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'd go penalty only because I didn't see a clear contact with the head.
Okay.
But we're watching it here.
But the question was, now that you've
slow.
watched the replay through the time, what are your thoughts? I'd
So
say-
maybe we should just watch it quickly once.
We should watch it quickly once. That's
Yeah.
what you can see.
Yeah, sure.
As a club down here,
Yeah.
that's what 99% of these people are doing.
Yeah.
Well, what's
I think, Pat, I think you're right though, that you could have sold that any decision, red, yellow, it's sort of one of those things.
And that's it. It's not always going to land right in red, right in yellow. It's great. Everything's great. You know, the decisions that we make out there sometimes.
I mean, there's been our pro referees who do have TMOs that are consistent, so.
Yeah.
If that red player had stayed on the ground and he was out, then I think.
Yeah. You would have got a different
That's an easy decision.
It's a pretty good measure of force to the head if he's out cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's jumped out, he's ready to go.
In fact, he's claiming he wasn't held.
I had a game last year. Where a player got taken, and it was hard to determine if it was really reckless and worthy of a red or not. And I went to sort of with yellow. That's what I felt at the time. It probably wasn't justified as a red. And the coach from the team that had that they got awarded the penalty was going absolutely crooked for giving a red card, and the opposition coach was saying, "What the hell? That was just plain." So there was quite a. Obviously, one of them was wrong, but that's what I'm trying to sort of get at, that they see it so differently, and you know, it's what they felt at the time. They probably had their eye patches on, but it's what you get. Yeah, so I was kind of comfortable that I went yellow there.
Motion another angle, 22 green. 22 green. This is for we are speaking to the phone.
Any thoughts there?
It's almost a bit like Scott Scrafton's bloody first yellow.
Yes. It's kind of careless, but degree of danger so if you play on it.
Club game,
Possibly.
play off.
Yeah.
Some guys specialise in this kind of system.
What are you saying?
surely there must be a sanction. Try comes on, that's one.
Yeah, so what are you saying for PK? Yeah, you've got a lot of, whoever has said it, I think, yeah, in a club game, initially you see that, you wouldn't think anything of it at the time, you'd be saying,
If you saw that in the fast motion,
yeah.
bang, the colour of the green.
Yeah.
add speed to it.
Okay, next one.
Yeah, yeah.
The 9, I think it was, oh, there it is.
It
Yeah.
was even the ball carrier.
Oh, do you know what I'm getting a bit of pain right at this point?
Oh, Well, it was completely unfortunate that that guy got taken out, the non-ball carrier.
But it was high up there.
Yeah, it was fine. Initial thoughts?
Well, the tackle was around the neck, but the head bit was completely accidental.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wrong place, wrong time.
So possibly just a PK.
Another explanation.
Oh, yeah, but he's still not playing.
Yeah, remember one look, right? Ryan's asking for another look. He's not sure.
Well,
Couple more.
so direct contact with the head, what about his height? Is that litigated?
There was a fair bit of
But if it connected him like a quarter of a second earlier, he would have had a good tackle.
I hit him now.
Yeah.
Can you say that again, please? I didn't quite hear that.
your son.
At that second there, if he was like closer, he would have hit the ball and we were fine.
Yeah.
But because he was late, he got scared and shriveled up, and then when he shriveled up, he got lower there to make him show.
So it's pretty reckless.
He just about had to leave it.
So who wants to make a decision on that? Yellow card.
I'm going to be perfect.
Red card? I think if you see it in real time, it looks pretty bad too, so. The red card, do it?
Who's going red? Who's going yellow? Sell it to me, JD.
Okay, we're talking about club rugby.
Yep.
It wasn't just clear, it wasn't a swing up. It was definitely dangerous, and he started high, but it's, for a red card for me, it's got to be bang, shit, everybody knows it's a red card. So it's probably a more soft option for me to go. It's easier for me to send it yellow than it is red.
Why wouldn't you err on the side of caution?
There's
What side's that?
go to red card.
Yeah.
That's not the side of good.
Because it,
Why wouldn't you go hard then?
because for me, it's got to be clear and obvious to be a red card, because somebody's going to end up losing 5 to 6 weeks on the sideline for it, so I better get that decision right.
Do you think maybe the reason why we're a bit split is because of the time that the player had to decide his action, you know what I mean? Like, my decision would be yellow card, but I can possibly see at full speed why some people would, especially with tackles like this where the guy's running up, you know, he's got heaps of time to decide on his tackle.
Left off the ground,
Yeah,
take it high.
yeah, so I think I can see both sides of that.
Well, it's pretty reckless charging in at that speed
Yeah,
as
that's
guys
right,
in here.
That's what I mean. Different to if it was the guy just, you know, like if it was
And that's what we're talking about, like deliberate, I don't think it was deliberate to take him out. He was just hoping that he would get the time absolutely perfect. And
yeah.
Where was he aiming?
Oh, he's aiming at his
What
head.
part of his body, where was he aiming? Probably high chest, eh?
Yeah.
So he's rolling the dice. The guy doesn't have to look. So that is a risky place to aim, right?
Yeah.
I reckon the guy has dipped a little bit on, but he's aimed too high to start with. So it's more like dangerous driving causing death here than it is murder.
Yeah.
Manslaughter.
Yeah. So it's like, so I can understand red, I can understand yellow. Because he is, it's not terrible tackle technique, but he's taking a risk by going so high.
And
It's not a swinging arm, shoulder charge, but he's also not aiming here either.
He's got to understand that if he doesn't quite get it right, he's running a major risk of the red card in that position.
And the guy's always going to come down to his bracelet
Yep.
because he hits them. And he's seen the tackler come.
I think he's doing it timing right, the guy wasn't in the air. That's why I'm going to yellow.
So we're pretty much on the fence.
So I'm going to put my community rugby hat on here and say I would rather the referee went overboard than went soft. So we had our first judicial hearing last week, and disciplinary committee just followed the black book, and what was quite an innocuous lifting tackle ended up being 6 weeks. Now, because the mid-level, because he landed on his head, the mid-level starting point's 10. Take 2 weeks off because of his remorse and 2 weeks off for an early guilty plea, and he gets 6 weeks. Now 6 weeks don't sound like much, but in an 8-week season, he's gone. So, does that seem quite harsh? Absolutely. Will that kid make another lifting tackle again in his rugby career? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know, Pat, the death penalty doesn't stop murder.
We don't have the death penalty.
Yeah, but countries that do still have murder.
But we don't have it.
It doesn't matter again.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
I don't know, Pat, like it's we've got to be like if you are on the fence and something, if you're on the fence, if you're thinking I'm not sure between yellow and red here, you've got to go yellow for me. Because like you've got to, if you're going to make that big call, you've got to be sure. I'm with JD's logic on that. Like, and if you're sure, like if you look at that one and you were sure, he said, I'm happy with red card on that. If you're not really sure at all, you don't even have to sell it to me. In fact, I don't think you should have to sell it anyways. It's a red card or it's a yellow card, whatever you decide. Who you're selling it to, decide. You've got a microphone everywhere. But if you chose either way, I'm happy with that. But I don't know, like but I'm not saying cop out of it. Definitely don't cop out of it. But if there's doubt,
Yeah, I think that's the element of doubt. Just sneaking suspicion that, oh, maybe it's not quite a red. I think I would have read the same, go towards the yellow.
especially if somebody has come in to make a at least semi-legitimate tackle. So like these ones here are bad clips. So let's not get too worried about these clips. Most of these ones we're not even going to see. These are ones that a TMO picks up and they replay it, they find a card, right? Most of them are if anything, he's got in a couple of them their starting points aimed a bit high, which is risky. But most of them are actually lining up to make a reasonably legitimate tackle when something's gone wrong. Right? The reality is we're not going to see most of those. So let's make sure we do a good job on the swinging arms, shoulder charges, tip tackles, late tackles, the dirty shit.
Yeah.
Yes, dirty shit.
You know, that's the stuff we. And if a guy comes with a swinging arm, and it's debatable whether he's gone in the upper shoulders or neck or head or whatever, that's a red card. Like he's being a thug. So don't get caught up in the framework around that stuff.
And going back to this framework, that deliberate word that they use to determine a red card, like a lot of what we're seeing here that we're sort of saying it might be a red card is, are we saying he's deliberately trying to, injure the player, or he's genuinely trying to make a big, good legal thing?
I think it's good too, if you've seen something like that, it's to buy yourself a little bit of time. You might be thinking red straight away, or yellow or whatever, but buy yourself a little bit of time. By the time you call the captain in and the player in, and you're still thinking red, it's a red, alright.
I honestly reckon that sometimes if I've got too much time, my gut instinct is the right instinct, and then I'll talk myself out of it by thinking too much
About the framework?
about it.
Here's my points!
Excellent.
I'm not ready to let this go.
There's a good piece of advice, Grant, and it's something that Bryce has always said to me is, go and have a look at the player on the ground that's down injured, just to buy yourself some time. Also see if their head's still attached to their body, because that's information. Survey the battlefield, right? But actually just buy yourself a bit of time. And like I think, okay, if you talk yourself out of it, it's rightly or wrongly you do, but you're more likely to get it wrong if you rush it.
Yeah. At least you're going to consider your decision to the full extent, aren't you? And then you've got the opportunity to then talk about how you're going to sell it to the captain and the player.
It depends if you have time. Like I had a good example of the weekend which I probably did get wrong, but it's like most other decisions, I suppose. But it was a tackle in the air situation. Player was coming down, and I was thinking, oh, this is a yellow card. Then he gets up, passes his ball to his mate, taps it, and they go. And so I was like, oh, I don't even have time to do this. And then they ended up stuffing it up, and they're like, oh, you're coming back for this yellow card? And I was like, like, pretty cool. Like, the coach is yelling for a red card. But like in that scenario, I'm like, the team that it happened to and the player that it happened to, they didn't even care at all. They just wanted to get on and get going. So I was like, oh, if you guys want to get moving, I'm going to get moving. I was probably on the borderline of it should be. If play had stopped then, I probably would have given the yellow straight away. But yeah, it was probably again a bit of a cop out of a decision. But I was like, if you guys are getting on with it, no one, like absolutely no one was complaining. I was like, oh, absolutely, get on with it.
It was very quick.
Yeah.
Exceptionally.
Was advantage over?
Like,
oh, because he tapped it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was a penalty.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was reaching for my pocket and then he tapped it again.
So if you did that again, would you actually like twice in the end just stop the game?
That's pretty.
You're quite happy with what you did?
But if they was that happy to take the tap and not try to milk their card at all, except for when they knocked it on about like two-faced.
So whatever.
Which is, I mean, that's probably not the right decision, but I think that's part of that reading what's happening. And, you know, if it was stopped going and checking on the player, that type of thing. But
if it was a red card offence, what would you have done? You would have seen them do it red, and they tap it quickly and they're running. What would you have done?
Would stop it. It was one of those border what line ones for me.
Looks like it was Kim Juriok in 13 that pinched the ball and they kick it down into a wasted kick. Here comes Sayers. It's an open broken. Oh, goodness me! Here's a pain, Harry Sutton.
Penalty against the Richmond.
Well, we've got a player on the ground here. He's obviously in pain. Initial feel. And so what do you reckon your left instead?
Did everybody have enough of a look? Or who wants to see it again? Yeah, well you can't. So.
Yeah, we can't, that's right, it's out.
Yeah, you can't see it again.
Play it again, TMO, please.
What I saw was the ball carrier slipped into it.
Yeah.
Not a hell lot the other guy could do.
And where was contact made? Was it around the head? With the shoulder?
Around here.
Yeah.
It looked I think very well. Yeah.
So you think it was alright? Play on. Well, now that we've decision gets to again,
I think that was not intentional as Grant Kemp meets out some justice. It's all on here at the football club. And I really don't think it needs to be. He went in hard and Sayers slipped. And it looked very nasty and very high. And that's what this looks like. It was Kim Juriok in 13 that pinched the ball and they kick it down into a wasted kick. Here comes Sayers. It's an open broken. Oh, goodness me! Here's in pain, Harry Sayers.
It's hard to sort of get a real good picture on that, but like you almost had his hands out like that.
Yeah.
He goes forward.
Yeah, he goes forward. He switches his suit onto the angle of attack was coming.
So,
Graham, I think your initial assessment was spot on.
Yeah.
The guy slipped into the tackle. The guy couldn't do anything, he was there.
Yep. I think you're right, but again, we might feel with what's going on with the player on the ground, some of us might feel that penalty at least. But, oh no, but
no.
So you do want to look it up?
You wait till the next line out and get stuck in the way.
Stop.
So, guys, we're just going to wrap it up there, guys. I don't really have anything more to add. Does anyone else want to got anything else to bring up or any thoughts on that?
Well, the money in
It ain't tiddlywinks.
Yeah, so I mean that's the biggest message really about what we had a chat around is that our feel for what we're looking at the time is probably one of the biggest considerations that we can make when we have as long as we sort of kind of on the same page with it. We get there when we look at these video clips and discuss, don't we? So we've got a fairly good indication of, everyone sort of seems to be mostly on the same page with what they think they saw. So you Grant?
Yeah, I was just curious to know, how would you restart that? You'd have to have made a decision, you guys are listening.
Yeah, you're right.
And if you don't, if you think it's just a slip, then it's...
Well,
Yeah, just knock on.
You don't think that you lose.
You can start, if something gets unsafe, you can stop the game.
Stop the game. Team in position.
You're right back where you were.
No, you're right. So that's cool. Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Ron.